living in society. So today we're going to be discussing a very, very important topic of which you shouldn't want to even blink, because this matter comes to us, the people, because there is a way we and the environment have to really live in harmony. So once one is disturbed, then the other may not live well on this world. But of course, my name is Luke Majumba Alnaitwe, and we are always being powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe, a very, very, very wonderful place that you'd want to visit at any given time, given their services that they offer, starting from accommodation until the meals. Everything is just perfect. I don't want to mention about the gym and spa, because it is very, very important and fundamental for you to really visit. I had tried it, but given the fact that we're always busy, you may not find time to really get to the gym. But please make sure you visit Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe. The numbers are there. You can contact them at any given time. Yes, it is a wonderful place indeed to visit. Now today we are going to be discussing the impact of environmental degradation to human well-being. Yes, you could wonder somehow, why to the human well-being? Yet we are supposed to live in harmony. Yes, remember, when you disturb the environment, then you are disturbing yourself. So in order for you to live well, you have to really make the environment also be better. And how is that done is what we are going to be discussing, and of course delving into here today, issues at hand, of course, and sitting in for Caro Noamani. So and today I'm being joined by Mr. Kureva David, who is the Senior Program Officer, Forestry and Diversity and Biodiversity, at the National Association of Professional Environmentalists. Now, that is very important, and it is, of course, the best fit for what we want to discuss here today. Good morning, Mr. David.
Good morning.
You're most welcome to Church of Uganda Family TV. Thank you. Please do greet our viewers.
Good morning, our viewer. My name is Kureva David. I work with the National Association of Professional Environmentalists. Like we have had the host. I'm the Senior Program Officer, Forest and Biodiversity, where most of issues of natural resources management, issues of culture, issues of herbs actually do exist. Thank you.
Okay. Now, recently we celebrated the World Wetland Day, which was on the 2nd of February, I think. And of course, the theme was wetlands and human well-being. You see what I was telling you about wetland and human well-being. We are always together. So when one is disturbed, then the other also is disturbed. So I want you, Mr. David, to briefly highlight for us what this day means and the relevance or the importance of celebrating such a day.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks to Family TV for hosting NAPE to be part of this show. It so happened that NAPE was part of the team that was in Ruzira when we were celebrating the International Wetlands Day, which was celebrated under the theme of wetlands and human well-beings. Of course, the celebration of such day is always aimed at creating awareness on the underlying causes of wetlands destruction. And of course, there is a lot that lives in the wetland. You know, we need environment more than it needs us, because the environment can thrive without us. But we cannot thrive without environment. On that day, it was aimed at looking at people are destroying the wetlands, but do they exactly appreciate the services of the environment, of the wetlands? Because when you look at the wetlands, these are like natural sinks. These are like natural filters. These are like natural areas. When you look at the hilltops, when it rains, certainly the water comes percolating. And like today, where everywhere there is a lot of paving, water comes percolating right from the hilltop, through the grasses, through shrubs, under trees. So by the time it gets to the wetland, some water has gone in the ground, and the one that settles at the bottom, wetlands are always at the bottom of hills. So these wetlands help in now feeding the aquifers. You know, aquifers, if you look at the water table, the water table is enhanced by water seeping through and getting down. It doesn't come from down, but certainly when there is precipitation, rain has come, it has run down to the valley in the wetland. It doesn't run so fast because wetlands are not like rivers where water just runs, but it goes through slowly, percolates and gets into the aquifers, and it stabilizes the water table.
Okay.
2, the wetlands are sources of food. If you're talking about food sovereignty, there are very many communities that depend on fish. If you go to these wetlands, certainly, this is where some even get some crafts. They get mats, they make mats and earn a living, but sustainably, not this business of establishing a commercial building and everything is like gone. But when you look at sustainable use, when you get like you have seen the papyrus, they are picked and mats are made, and so you have seen very many women depend on that. If you go to the Vigi side,
yes,
that is one. 2, precipitation, because when it rains and the wetlands flood, certainly they create a condition in the morning. If you have moved in the morning, in the valleys you will see like dew. And that one is very, very important for their agriculture. People that are into agriculture. It is Musu in Uganda, or May in Runyankore, and dew, I think, in English. And that's what goes back to the plant. So you'll find the plant in the morning, it is like wet. Somebody has poured water on it. And that makes it survive with the vitamin that come with the sun around between 8 and 9 in the morning. Now, when wetlands are gone, certainly you have challenges related to the destabilization of the water table, the wetland species. There are so many wetland species, including frogs, including mudfish, including hypochromines, and very many wetland inclined species, wetland endemic species. All those are good, but also they support human well-being. These wetlands, communities also fetch water from there. The domestic water that is used by communities, some of it is gotten from the wetland. People, even some people that sustainably use it, and this is where the challenge sometimes comes in, that at times the enforcement looks at these people, petty users of the wetland, who are not ultimate destroyers, certainly. It provides food, the yams and a few plants, including, if it's sustainably used on the fringes, you can even have sugarcane. It can feed the nation. So somehow you get food, you get it controls the runoff that would eventually destroy quite a number of things. It harbors quite a number of habitat for quite a number of species, and that way, when all that is gone, certainly you have a challenge with the microclimate. Once you tamper with the wetland and it is gone, the microclimate is affected. Yes.
Okay, that is really, really important, and I trust that the people in Lugogo had a test to this when the floods did come around. So those are the effects that really come. Now, I think let's now delve into today's discussion about environmental degradation. What is environmental degradation in some layman's understanding?
Environmental degradation, in the layman's understanding, is unsustainable utilization of natural resources, where the benefits of the resources goes to a few.
Okay.
So you find you have a wetland which has been, for example, it is serving 200 people. So a person comes and puts a flag.
Oh, yeah.
It will be seen in the eyes of people that will be looking at the element of taxation, collecting taxes, and probably looking at the beautification of a structure, and the people who look at the GDP. It will look as development, but that is pseudo development. That's not development, because even the returns on the investment will go to a few people as compared to the initial people that benefited from the wetland. So when we're talking about degradation, that's what it means. And it goes to an extra mile where there is grabbing of some of these resources. You know, these wetlands don't belong to individuals. They are held in trust for the people by the government. Now, some big shots take advantage because they have the money, they can build big structures that are appreciated by the government, and eventually they end up destroying and grabbing the wetlands at the expense of communities that would be benefiting from it sustainably for very many years. So when there is destruction of wetland in that manner, then certainly you're feeding the nation today, but compromising the survival of the future generation, the children that we're going to produce, all the ones that we have produced.
Okay.
We are feeding our own selves now and probably supporting them to grow. But in the future, when they are decision makers, they'll find a problem to decide on some of those because they will be long gone.
Can you expound some of the activities of environmental degradation?
If you go to the wetlands, seemingly that are supposed to be wetlands, you will find very big storied buildings.
Yes.
Residential storied buildings.
Sure.
A storied buildings, 3, 4, 5 floors, including even if it were one. If you look at the manner in which infilling is done with soil, and knowing that wetland will never come back, that one in itself is a permanent destruction of human beings, not nature. Because we don't destroy nature, we destroy ourselves. Our life is entirely dependent on environment. So the moment you destroy environment, you're destroying yourself, nothing else. So if you look at the structures, permanent structures in wetlands, those are one of them. If you look at roads being constructed in those wetlands, those are permanent structures, and they come with a lot of emissions, a lot of spills that end up in the wetlands, and of course the spills and the waste that come from the road and end in the wetlands certainly compromise the wetland species. So if you look at, if you look at the road that, for example, was constructed from Boyogiriri up to, I think, Busega, it goes beyond Busega and it goes up to Entebbe and goes back to Munyonyo. It runs through a wetland. So how much of the species were displaced? How much did we lose? And when we talk about the emissions now, how much absorbing capacity did we compromise? So if you look at the roads, if you look at structures, I'm sorry, I must mention this also. Some churches, some churches, some of them, which formed most of, like Church of Uganda had taken most of the hilly plots. It has ended up, you see most of them in those low-lying areas, in wetlands, if I could make it that way. Agriculture activities are happening in wetlands. And you take an example of the rice growing in Rera. It compromises a lot, because that's like the mouth of a very big basin, freshwater lake, serving with one of the longest rivers, serving so many countries under that arrangement of riparianship. But you find those activities, like rice activities, happening in the wetland that should be jealously protected. Talk about sand mining. If you go to Rera, if you go to Ruizi, a lot of sand mining. And of course the poor people, not very many poor people use this lake sand. It is used by the rich. It is used in construction of these big flats like the way in which we are now. If you can imagine the destruction that this building caused to Rera, from the first floor up to the floor where we are now. So agriculture, sand mining, rice growing, conversion into commercial structures. Those are some of the destructive elements, to mention but a few, including there are quite many. If you go to Lake Victoria recent, I've seen the introduction of fish caging.
Oh yes, it is actually escalating.
I've been to this part here as you go to Entebbe. There are fuel tankers built on the shores of the lake.
Oh.
So you can imagine if fuel tankers are being built around the lake, if you see factories just near the wetlands, and you can imagine the influence. I think and at some point, because wetlands were seen as wastelands, I think most of these wetland factories were being put there
So they can
to ease influence disposal maybe. But if you look at the breweries that are around the lake, if you see the fish processing plants, if you see even flower farming, if you can see rosebud flower farming, degrading that whole big chunk of wetland just to grow flowers, as if you're growing food. Those are some of the unsustainable development agenda that is promoted under the guise of just having income.
But we are in a world where the economy has to grow so fast. What should people do? Because
what is the essence of having a fast-growing economy when eventually people's climate is going to be compromised to the extent that even the local person will fail to get what to eat? People don't eat money. You can't eat peppers. Even if you had 500 million in your pocket and there is no food, you can't chew it. Even if you had dollars, you can't chew it. The bottom line is good climate is food. Food is the primary security worldwide. It does not make sense. I've seen so many people. You give out your land. I give an example of Karangara. People grow oil palms. And they use the same money to buy food. Why wouldn't you grow your own organic food rather than wasting your time? You circumlocating, going around eating. You get the money, you go back to the market, you buy food, you come back and cook. Why don't you grow your food, go to the market, and then go to the garden, pick the food and eat? Because it eventually comes back to almost no
Eating,
good result.
yeah, sure.
So the most important thing, I think, for me, is the security of food.
okay.
The security of food and also water. Two things, water and food. I constitute a big percentage of life.
Okay. And so where are the regulators here? Because some of the things, if you were to see some of the examples you highlighted, like the road passing through a wetland and of course species being destroyed, and the government is aware of that, the regulators are aware of that. Even here in Lugogo we have so many government facilities that are in the wetlands. Where are they? Are they not aware that they are destroying the environment as well?
Where are the regulators? Where are they? Actually, I think they are there. You know, I think in this country, some things are survival for the fittest.
Okay.
And he who pays the piper determines the tune. Some of these government programs, if you look at them, if you look at most of these beaches, some of them are for big people. And they look at the income element. If you look at the road, it's a government program that is aimed at serving people in that area. Certainly, if you're being paid a salary, unless you want your kids to drop out of school, I think the regulators are also very compromised. But also, in some areas where there is minimal encroachment, it's because of funding. But I wouldn't see funding as a big problem for me. I think largely, if you look at mega projects that are happening in these wetlands, the problem largely is, I think, instructions from people that are superior to them. You're being employed by Family TV. Family TV can tell you now to terminate, to end the show. You don't have any right. If Family TV decided that you end the show, you can end it. So I think for me, sometimes when you look at these regulators, you can't understand it. They are talking about cancellation of titles. The president, seemingly when he's speaking, is an environmentalist. He loves the environment. And of course, if you look at how he grew up, he's an environmentalist, I think, by birth or something like that. But I think somehow the regulators, I think, are either mislead in terms of giving figures. You know, when you attach a figure to something, in the present money economy, it is gone. It's like if you start saying this plot of mine is, now I bought it 10, it is around 40 million now. If you start monetizing your resources, you know they are gone.
Okay.
If you saying no, but I bought it 20, I can get 40. You didn't buy it. If you didn't buy to sell. But you see, when they make monetary projections, when they say now if there is a wetland here, how much money is it bringing? But if you put a factory here, it will be employing 20 people, 100 people. It will. The government will get such an amount of taxes. And that calculation, of course, if we are talking about growing economy, eventually the economists, economists are also economists are one of the people that are leading to environmental destruction because they attach everything to money. If you say, conserve Mabira, how much money does it bring in for the country? But if you're talking about oxygen, if, for example, people would be put on oxygen, how much would the country spend on ensuring that 48 people are supported by oxygen. If you talked about supplying water or supplying a good climate to around 48 million people, if the environment destroyed, how much money would the government spend, and where would that money come from? So I think the regulators are there, but they are surviving.
Okay. Okay. And now in that particular context as well,
Yes.
How is the socio-economic, how do you see the socio-economic well-being of mostly the vulnerable? Because I think greatly environmental degradation gives credit to those who practice it, the big shots. What influence does it bring to the vulnerable?
The vulnerable remain vulnerable. They are the brink of collapse. Because if you have watched the videos of eviction, it is these people with makeshifts.
Yes.
Where it is they can easily be evicted. They are easily these people that have built semi-permanent houses that are evicted. So of course the local people certainly the local person always suffer. I must say this. I've seen it severally. I've seen it in Rubiji. They have post structures that come and even encroached and pushed. But these small people that were growing mayoni and having some small makeshifts and they are evicted. They are running a road from Mpiji coming through that Rubiji wetland. Most likely it is going to join Busega. So you can imagine the people around there, all of them have been meant to live. They have left. So the wetlands, I remember at some point the president made mention of that factories in the wetlands which are creating employment, and some good touristic structures that can be established around the river banks and lake shores with license from NEMA and other regulators. They can establish. But if you're a local herbalist and you want to practice your cleansing around the lake shores, certainly you have to go. Yes. So I think, like the Bible says, I think those who have are the ones that are added. Probably, I don't know. I don't know these professors, writers who wrote this. The local person will continue to suffer until I don't know when, because I don't see the leverage. I don't see how this person can survive. First of all, their structures are easy to break. Their property is easy to destroy, as compared to a structure that actually was put with concrete and iron bars. So I think the way I see and the way I've seen when they are enforcing even the wetlands law, up country, in Balada, in wetlands up country, people was even including eucalyptus and some small gardens that were surviving in those small wetlands, including the scissor ones. All of them were slashed. People were made to shift, including those people that had fenced the wetlands, the part of their farms. They were even instructed to change the fencing. So some of these laws affect the smaller people, if I would say. The vulnerable people, certainly, they have no voice. Once you sent out, you just move. But some people you are trying to evict makes a call, say, talk to this one. And eventually you see a person melting a little and disappearing. So some of these laws are meant to affect the small people. The big people, the law, what can the law do to them? Do you know that people have titles and they have approved plans to construct in wetlands?
That's a question I also want to raise. Is it legal to have a title of a wetland?
It is depending on now. You are supposed to have a permit. A wetland is held in trust for the people, and wetland shouldn't be personalized. But you can have a license, some sort of a lease to do some activities in a wetland. under good environmental impact social impact assessment studies done and approved by National Environmental Management Authority in collaboration with the structures like wetlands and all those bodies. They work together, they seek community opinion, they subject it to public hearing, and eventually you're given a license to do some work with very good instructions on how it should be done. But people have freehold titles in wetlands. And at times, I don't know, there are no clear demarcations where the wetlands start and end. Not in many areas that wetlands are clear. If you look at even beyond the wetlands, that's the connotation that has been on. If you look at Bugoma, there was no clear boundary where Bugoma starts and ends. So now there was confusion whether the establishment is in a forest or it is outside the forest. So that's where the challenge comes in, that the government does not make effort to ensure that there is clear demarcation of where the wetland starts and ends. So that if you found beyond a certain mark stone, then you know you are inside. But now a person, when it rains, water has come up to here, so it becomes a wetland. Then it goes, a wetland definition, it can be permanently or seasonally wet. But if it is permanently or seasonally wet, where exactly? Put it very clear. People have lived with wetlands for so many years, and wetlands had thrived and surviving. Because these wetlands, actually, they are meant also to benefit people. But if you chase them out, and they were in existence, but now I think the regulators have made it worse, that it has to be those people that are permitted, and those people to be permitted to use the wetland are the people with money, and they come with permanent destruction.
Okay. Yes. But what activities are supposed to be done in wetlands?
No, in wetlands you can do fish pond.
Yeah.
You can do fish pond. You can be licensed to harvest the papyrus. You can do. There are species that are compatible. If, for example, you're talking about like sugarcane. If you look at the sugarcane structure, it's almost also cleans the water system. It can also work there. But largely, the wetland is meant to remain intact. You can open it for communities to fetch water.
Okay.
Like that, but not because any activity beyond that. You cannot put in effluents. If you power effluents and you turn it into a dumping site, certainly the support of the wetland will be compromised, as very many species that live in the wetland will certainly die. So those are very few compatible species, compatible activities, but also like for ecotourism. You can do ecotourism, you can do ecotourism activities where people come and do walks, if you have gone to Rutembe, this side, you can have a boat, some sort of boat cruise, you cross and you watch some statung around there. Then those are some of the compatible, but largely wetlands are sinks. So when water collects from uphills, collects there, then they service the aquifers, largely that.
Okay. Yeah. Don't you think we are falling short, actually? Let me go back to the regulators, because there are some wetlands I'm sure of. There's one in Chambogo Banda. It is now a dumping site and very, very well known for waste management. And they just throw their things. Don't you think the regulators are falling short of this? Mostly NEMAX, maybe.
You see, I think the planners somehow they fall short of priorities and things that need to be done.
Okay.
The wastes can be turned into wealth. There is no reason why domestic waste should have a certain area where it is being just dumped and you just do infilling. If they are plastics, you can recycle them and make conduits. These people who are building every day, they need these conduits where these pipes run through. You can make basins. It's all about putting in some small money into some establishment of some factories that I can do recycling. And the problem is done. If you're talking about waste, people eat food, there are people with a lot of money who eat food and eventually dump. You have papers. Why should you have all these papers having a place where they are being dumped? They can't be recycled. They can be reused. Why should you have an area where you're dumping them? They can be reused. Why should you have food waste being dumped somewhere and then you import manure? Why wouldn't you get some money? There is a lot of money that is just being misused. You hear people like members of parliament are in Rwanda playing football for all. That money put together can put a mini processing plant for fertilizers. You hear people flying every day going to plan. What they plan, you can't even see. You see? You see, if you look at the number of parliamentarians that we have, it is almost a disaster. The money that is spent on them, I'm telling you. For me, I've been to Murago. I can say I've had the opportunity to experience that. I had old parents. I went to Murago. But if you go to Murago and see the kind of suffering that is there, if you go there with a sick person, or if you go there when you are sick, or if you fall sick and you happen to visit any hospital, then you will appreciate this country and the way money is spent.
Okay.
Yes, because even inside the hospital, some of the machines there are privately owned. You must pay.
Yes, sure.
You see?
I know.
Now a person has come from for example, my place has come from Banana. You have to go through a CT scan. Can the government fail to really procure even if there are 30 CT scans in this country? Can it fail? But you find 20 people lining just for one CT scan while people are playing football in Chigari. You really, there are things that you look at, and so there are things that really, when you see, you can't really make up some. You can't understand some of the things.
Sure.
Yes.
It is, of course, issues at hand, and we are still continuing with that discussion. We are on issues to do with environmental degradation. Of course, the environment is us, and as Mr. David noted, the environment doesn't need us. It is us who need the environment. We're still continuing with this discussion. Please stay on. We're going in for a very short break, then return.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. Issues at Hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Welcome back. It is Issues at Hand, and of course we are still discussing issues to do with the environmental degradation. Remember, we are powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe, a place you'd want to visit and of course have a very, very good experience while there. So I'm still here with Mr. David, and we're discussing issues to do with environmental degradation. He is from the National Association of Professional Environmentalists, and now we're talking about the disadvantages and what comes along with destroying waste, and of course destroying the wetlands and all that. And of course somehow, somewhere, we got to realize that it is actually the big shots who tend to benefit from these waste destruction, environmental destruction, but the vulnerable tend to actually suffer the more in this particular context. So, Mr. David, I want us to delve into the disadvantages, stroke outcomes of environmental degradation on the community, actually mostly back to us, because we are the ones who suffer most.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And the negative outcomes are quite many. We're experiencing already climate change.
Oh yes,
we have lost species. If you look at, I happen to come from the rural community. I grew up in the village. If you look at the current agricultural style, way back we used to, in our agricultural system, we used to have bees pollinating. The population of bees has gone down. Why? Because of climate change, there is compromised soil quality, soil fertility. Now there is introduction, commercialization, and with the regulation. The regulation is a bit poor. Now they bring in a lot of agrochemicals. The agrochemicals are now also being used by communities. People no longer till land and grow. They just get Weedex, they just glyphosate, they just spray, and the weeds go. And that is the implication of now destruction of environment, so that now the environment no longer becomes reliable. Its reliability now is compromised. So you have that climate variation. And as a result, communities now that do not even have money may end up using agrochemicals which they would not otherwise have used if the environment was kept intact. So the use of agrochemicals is one other thing that comes with climate change. And capitalists take advantage. Like around this season, we used to experience a lot of sunshine, but you see most times we have rains. That is climate change. So now, meteorologically, one may not be very certain whether the rains are coming in March. Rains are coming in March. So, and that is now a disadvantage. If you look at a community that used to benefit from, like, fishing in the wetlands, these wetlands have been taken. The fish caging has been taken. The local person will not access the wetlands, will not access fish. So they will have malnutrition. The kids around those communities that really depended on fish, because of the compromisation of fish, they will certainly not get. And if you look at the use of glyphosate, Weedex, chemicals, they eventually get run off and get into these breeding places of fish, like those papyrus reeds. That's where most fish actually breed from, and eventually they get the mainstream water. Now, those ones are also compromised. When they get compromised, certainly you will find the population of fish is compromised, and the fishes actually, in generally the different types in the lake, also disappear. And how many people, including the local people, can afford to buy fish? They will find they are long gone. So they will be food insecure, and eventually the food sovereignty component because there's a difference between food sovereignty and food security. You can be food secure, but you are not food sovereign. So community used to be food sovereign, but now that one is not there anymore. Because food sovereignty, you can grow your own food, you know how you grow it, you have the seeds that you grow in the next period, you don't have these terminator seeds. You can determine the market and what to give your friend and relatives and the people making parties. But now, every time you want food, you can either go to the supermarket, or if you want seeds, you just go and buy. So if the source of food is from the external source, you just have the security of food, but you are not sovereign. Sovereignty, if you went to my home now, you go to the banana plantation, you cut the banana, you bring it, the chicken is just right to the next corner, you slaughter. You don't have to go anywhere look for food. But here you have to go to the neighbor. If the shop is closed and the person has come at night, that certainly that person will not have anything to eat that night.
Yes, sure.
So it compromises food sovereignty. And even food security is also going to be compromised sooner than later.
All right.
And food becomes very expensive. And because land becomes less productivity because of climate change, even the youth and our brothers and sisters end up looking at where they can get quick money. That's why you see many people are into borders, but they didn't even have land back home. And that most of the land has been bought by people who have money. You will go to most of these places, you'll find a very big chunk of land. People are evicted, but the land is just there idle.
Yes.
So when they say the prices of food have increased, then the complaints come. No, the whole thing is about some people that used to use this land have been evicted. They are on the street problem with borders and trying to make ends meet. Because a person has 5 square miles and the land is just idle, not making any economic sense for the people, nor for the country.
Wow. And now addressing maybe the issue of climate change, because I think it is now sparking off. We don't know where we are. Seasons are totally changing. How do you think a normal person, because I think in most cases we have put much pressure to government for all that, or for the authorities, how can a normal person, a citizen out there, practice, do something to enhance climate change?
Climate change will be enhanced if, one, we don't destroy trees. Trees, forests, are the lungs of the world. Transpiration, rainfall, is from evapotranspiration. Evaporation from the water bodies, but also transpiration from plants. You must have plants to have a good climate. That one, it's not negotiable. You must have plants. Now, what probably communities have to do at earliest is to ensure they plant endemic species or indigenous species around their plots, not pine and eucalyptus. You can have those wood lots for energy balance. Certainly you need firewood. You can have a wood lot, but on the boundaries of your farm or within the farm, have species that have the permanency element, that you are not cutting the next day, or which you are not looking at, that tomorrow, this tree, once I cut it, I can pay school fees. No. Have mango trees, have avocados, knowing that season in, season out, you can get money out of it. But at the same time, when you're getting money from the fruits, also the tree is playing other functions. It is harboring some insects, it is bringing in some bees, it is also sequestering carbon dioxide. But also it can also release. It can do dry and wet precipitation. You can have it on some of those trees. So it is very important. One, we think about planting, doing boundary planting trees. And let's not be taken by small money. A tree that has been there for 500 or 200 or 100 or 50 years, don't cut it to be given 200,000. You just buy 2 crates of beer, it is gone, the tree is gone for life. You never see it again. You never enjoy that shade. Your animals will never enjoy that shade. The passers-by will never enjoy that shade. The birds will never enjoy those trees. They will never patch. So let's maintain those trees that are already in existence. Let's not destroy them. The wetlands certainly have been compromised, but the 8% where we are, because we are at 13, we are now at 8, and the wetlands department is saying we are increasing. How they are increasing, I don't know, because I see the level of destruction is much higher than restoration. But they are saying it is increasing. Where they have increased visibly on ground, I don't see. For me, I don't see that. I've unfortunately not seen that. Maybe I don't have eyes to see. Like one of our people said, people who don't have eyes cannot see the dams, that the dams were there. So we need to do that. When we do that boundary planting, when we do respect the already existing trees, when we do respect the wetlands, sustainably use them. You cannot say with no touch. This is not preservation that we are not going to touch. Certainly you use, but in a manner that does not compromise its life. So if we do, and you see the factories that are coming up, I've seen so many factories coming up along this Bombo Road and so many. But the standard, the quality of machines that are imported here, they're also very important, because we must look at how much and what quality of emissions they bring out.
Oh, yes.
Because you just have a factory. You have brought death. You have brought employment. Not thinking that you have brought people, you have brought employment for the youth, but you have brought them death. The amount that will be emitted, and when it comes back in precipitation, if it was, for example, producing carbon, a lot of carbon, it will come with weak carbonic acid or strong carbonic acid or nitric acid, depending on what is emitted from the factory. So the quality of machines that are imported. Unfortunately, you find some of these machines are the ones that were discarded, that can no longer be allowed. The quality controls, people cannot allow it to perform, but it's brought here and it works. Like we used to have very, very old vehicles, so 20, 30 years on the road. You see? So when you are following the vehicle, you think that you are following, a lot of smoke, a lot of black soot. Yeah. So we need to work around that, ensuring that we have trees. We make sure that we fix trees. We ensuring that that is at regulation level for factories and the quality of vehicles that are imported. So once that one is done, somehow we shall see how best we can come to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Okay. Africa will burn at some point if we don't deal with climate change.
Oh, yeah, sure. So maybe as we wind up, how best can we live in harmony with nature?
The best way to live with nature is respect nature.
Okay.
Take into consideration that nature does not need you. You need nature more than it needs you, because the nature can thrive without us. So we need to respect nature. Certainly we must cook. So if it is, let's take the dead wood. Let's cut the branch, but don't cut the entire tree. If it is wetlands, encroachment, do some small work around the wetland, but don't destroy the entire thing. Don't put something very permanent. If it is a forest, yes, you can do some selective harvesting. Selective harvesting guided by professionals on how it should be done, but not from the commercial point of view where you're looking at money, how much money do you get back in return. But money in itself, money is evil. You have the money, but the money can never bring back the forest once it is destroyed. It's like if you have money and you have no life. I've seen people with lots and lots of money, but once life has decided to go, it goes. So once you destroy the environment and you feel you really want that environment back, it can be very hard. A tree does not grow in one day. Have you ever planted a tree? Do you have trees?
Yeah, I have one. It is called a toki.
Oh, very good. If you have planted trees, you will see how hard it is to nurture a tree from the soil up to shoulder level, up to you see when you enjoy the canopy, when we enjoy the shade. So we need to also think about planting trees, very, very important, and stop the use of agrochemicals. This country, there is a lot of agrochemicals misuse. Okay. Probably we cannot avoid them completely, but the manner in which chemicals are being used is a disaster. If you go to West, you will find ticks. Some ticks have become resistant. So they get the ones for tomatoes, they get the ones for onions, they get the ones for spinach, they get For cows, they mix. What are you mixing? Then they spray. And then when the tick dies, but you have killed the cow itself also. And this is what we feed on. Okay. Most cows have been moving around. I'll see they don't even see. Because that combination, that chemistry, that the people have come biochemists, they also make their own mixtures. They turn out to be a very, very big problem. So I think we need to respect chemical use. Chemical use should be should be guided by professionals. There are people that have experience in mixing those chemicals. Probably those people that are into fighting ticks could have done that, but they saw there are certain limits you cannot go beyond. But if you do it, those are the dangers. It's like we are poisoning ourselves, and we are eating our way to the grave. Most of the things, including the food that we eat, tomatoes, they are full of chemicals, including meat, it has full of eventually it gets into our bodies and we also get challenges. Yeah.
Wow. We are discussing the impact of environmental degradation on human well-being. Human well-being, yes, just like Mr. David noted, the nature does not need you, but you rather need it the more. So it is up to you to preserve what you need. So it is important that we really, really maintain our community, our nature, our environment, so that we can really live sustainably in the environment. Maybe as we wind up, if you could say out any last comments.
Yes, I think my last comment is that we need to respect nature. Let the regulators do their job. Let's enforce these laws. We have good laws. If you look at river banks, if you look at the buffer zoning, if you look at the regulations on how to use chemicals, we have very good laws. Let them be enforced. On the side of communities, let's respect some of these resources that we have lived with for all this time. Let's not destroy the wetlands. Let's not destroy our forests. Let's plant more trees so that we are able to get water, we are able to get good soils, and we are able to get good decomposition. Because at the moment we have a destroyed environment, certainly we don't have decomposition. The process of decomposition will be compromised. And eventually, you will not have fertile soils. You will apply chemicals, and their chemicals will eventually get into your body, and certainly you eat your way to the grave. So we need to respect the environment maximally and also protect it jealously.
Very important indeed to note. I remember some time back we were traveling to Fort Porto with camera people, and we decided to take the drone shots of a particular forest. Here at the roadside it is very thick, but when you take the aerial view inside there, it is alarming. There are so many playgrounds. So you can imagine the rate at which people are really consuming the environment, yet we are the ones who are supposed to be benefiting from it. Yes, it has been very important. Of course, I've been joined by Mr. David Kureba, who is the program's senior program officer of forests and biodiversity at the National Association of Professional Environmentalists, and he has really done us very good, and I hope you've taken in lots of notes so that we can really live in harmony with nature. I will keep noting it. Nature does not need you, you need nature the more. My name is Luke Majumba Lenaitwe. It has been Issues at Hand, and of course we hope to see you at the next day, but of course programming is continuing here at Church of Uganda Family TV. Please stay on. Remember, we are always powered by Protea Hotel by Marriott in Entebbe.
Issues at Hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and